Okay, so I want to welcome everyone to week 4 of xEssentials. Tonight is kind of a quick topic. We had a presenter unable to present this Wednesday, so Clyde graciously accepted the challenge and came out with a fantastic topic and a great presentation. Tonight is problem solving, custom pixel count output challenge. You've got the floor, Clyde.
All right. Well, thank you very much. First, I want to preface this with um, I was coerced into this topic. It was thanks to Sam Robb. So, Sam, this is for you. Um, the you all can come up with your own label to this. I've been trying to label this video for the past 2 years because I just didn't know how to do it. But we'll get into it. What we'll start with is basically, I want you to keep in mind a couple things before we begin, namely that things advance in xLights rather quickly and at a pace unmatched to any other software I've ever seen. We're using 2021.5 right now. So for those of you folks who watch this xEssential 5 years from now in 2026, I'm sorry if they fixed xLights and you're watching this video and you realize, oh, it doesn't do that anymore. I apologize to you in the future, but for you in the current present, the releases can update, and sometimes and we're very much appreciative of what the developers are do with the program and the software. And when they see videos like this, is why xEssentials is nice. They see the challenges and the frustrations that users have, and this is one vehicle that they use that they may see fit to make changes to xLights. And when they do see that, that's where the changes come from. So sharing your challenges and frustrations is always an important thing. Don't feel like you're sharing and it's falling on deaf ears, because there certainly is merit to it. So with that being said, tonight we're here to teach you how or why 5-volt pixels are better than 12-volt pixels. So no, actually, I'm just kidding. So if you all better be laughing right now. But seriously, if you're laughing, why are you laughing? Because 5 volts are actually better, and I approved this from Russell. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started, because I feel like this is going to be a relatively great topic to begin with. The idea or the goal of tonight's class is going to be to give you the path to set up your models so that you can upload custom pixel counts to your controller outputs. Now, the best way I can describe this is I have a prop and I want to put custom pixel counts on each different port, but it's going to one model. And how do you do this? There are other ways that I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about shadow models at all. That word won't come out of this presentation at all tonight. But I'm going to work within one model confine. And the example that I'll give is, let's say you want 150 pixels to be on port number 1. You want 200 pixels to be on port number 2, and you want port number 3 to run 250 pixels. This can be done, and it is possible. But again, as I said earlier, this is ridiculously hard to explain, and you cannot imagine over the past 2 years how many times I've tried to record this video and just stopped because I didn't know how to present it. So I've done my best to kind of simplify it for you. It's going to sound a little confusing at first because I realize that people learn differently. So I'm going to go through a couple different steps to get us there. We're going to do a hands-on. I'll show you in xLights how to do it one at a time. I'm going to try to be simplistic about it. But I'm also going to give, for the people who are really left-brained and they need that map, they need to see the step-by-step on the screen of the different screenshots, that's going to be in this too. So that part for some people will be boring, for other people that'll be most useful, and vice versa whenever it comes to the step 1 is, and you follow me on the screen. So next, the discussion of challenges to uploading custom pixel counts. There are 3 different scenarios, 3 different challenges we're going to talk about tonight. Number 1, and this is where I've kind of veered off of the original intent of the video, which was only one specific topic. I'm actually expanding it to add 2 more in because it's a question that comes up quite frequently in the groups, and it's a good time to add it in and consider it with the topic. So first off, we're going to talk about special matrix wiring. The second thing and wiring is kind of a misnomer. I guess I should have put special matrix outputs. The second thing is props with odd pixel counts, and third is high definition HD pixel props. So if you for you on the recording that are hearing this in the future, previous to starting the recording, we were talking about, wouldn't it be great to talk about HD props? Well, it happens to be thrown in here, and I'm ready to get started with it. So what are the challenges? Well, I had some challenges, and this is why the topic is relevant, and why I started, or I led with exactly 5-volt pixels. I use 5-volt pixels in my display, and what my situation was with using X lights was that I wanted to have 100 pixels maximum per output, but my modular matrix panels, as you see here in the picture, those don't exactly fit 50 count or 100 count pixels, and that would lead most people to, cutting off pixels, cutting off the remaining strings, and like that's like sacrilege. I can't cut a string of pixels. That's crazy. And I'm in the boat of, I don't really care to cut the pixels. You can if you want to. It's easier if you do. But I don't care. I found my ways. I found my workarounds, and so hopefully that's what I'm going to be able to convey to you tonight. But we are also limited by controller uploadability and options. So there may be some controllers out there that cannot do this, and I'll try to mention that tonight. We're specifically going to talk, I'm going to use the Falcon and the Cult boards specifically because of the settings and options. There may be other controllers that can handle it, but I'm not aware of if they are able to or not. So I don't have the answer for all of that. I'm pretty sure that if there is a controller out there that can do what we're talking about, then somebody can share that with me. So challenges. That's challenge number one, was with the matrix panel. The second challenge is legacy props. So if you've been in the holiday lighting arena for any time longer than 5 years, you've probably seen these specific 5 different models just throughout the experience. And personally, I use the candy canes. I use every model you see on the screen is in my layout somewhere on my home layout. And I call these legacy props because they've been around. They've been around for so long. And the reason why this might be something odd or challenging to understand and get through to other people is, how do you deal with a 48 pixel candy cane or a 48 pixel snowflake, and you don't want to cut the other 2 pixels off and you want to chain them together? And then we have a spinner with 85 nodes. Well, now you've got 15 pixels that aren't being used. How do you deal with that? So I don't like to cut pixels. If I'm using 5-volt, I'm only gonna put 100 pixels on an output because I don't want to power inject. That's my mentality whenever it comes to some of this. And so I see it as a way to to utilize what I have and then not make it more complicated. I like things very simple. So the third challenge we'll talk about is HD prop challenges. Specifically, we'll go into the mesmerizer, but there are a number of other props. Once you see the solution to the first one, the solution to the HD props becomes rather simple. You'll understand it when we get to it. But to review again, those are the 3 solutions that we're going to review are using null pixels with the canes and the snowflakes. The upload may not work on specific controllers because we're going to use something called a virtual string. Now, I know these work fine in the Falcon controllers and the Culp controllers. any other controller I'm not aware of. We're going to walk you through converting a native xLights matrix model into a custom model, and then we'll also work with the xLights circle model and convert that into a custom model as well. If none of you have ever done this before, it's a very simple thing. I will walk you through it. But this allows us, or this gives us the vehicle for which us that we can use to make our individual varied pixel counts per output. Not that I'm not trying to do a shameless plug here, but I literally just did, and I'm getting better with titles, but I literally just did a video on this topic. If after tonight you'd like to review exactly what I've gone over, I've done the first part of the video is on a specific use case where somebody sent me an email, a question about how to do what we're going to do tonight, but in their own words. And I invite you to go to the PPD website, pixelprodisplays.com/all-access. It's literally on the first page at this point, but in the future, if you're watching, just do the search for convert the xLights matrix model. There's a search videos function there, and this video will walk you through it, and it's only on that topic, so you don't have to go regurgitate this video. And because again, I'm presenting this material a little differently than I'm presenting it in that video. So if you haven't watched that one and you'd like to, that information is there. Next slide. There we go. So we're going to start with a matrix panel. Now, as far as the matrix panel goes, I use the modular matrix panels in my display. There's two of them. They are a vertical model, a vertical matrix model. And so side by side, a maximum of 300 or total of 336 pixels go into this thing. Now, I know a lot of you are sitting there saying, well, 336 pixels at 12 volt, I can run that, no big deal. I'll put it at like 12% brightness and have at it, and it looks great, and it would work. But I use 5-volt pixels because they're better, they're cheaper, they don't catch on fire. Well, I haven't had any fire pixels. So, but in any event, I put one panel together, one panel with another panel, and whenever you build a vertical matrix in xLights, the way that xLights sees it as a number of strings and a number of strands and a total number of pixels per string. A strand is a fold in and I'm not going to show you exactly how all of xLights builds a model. That's not what this is about. But one panel is 4 times 42 pixels, which is 168 pixels total. I don't have that down here, but we're going to go ahead and set up in xLights 2 panels that are side by side, 4 strings at 84 pixels each. And my goal is to use 5-volt pixels, as I said, and I'm going to use 4 outputs total. Now, I know that it says here I want to use 100 pixels per output and the short string at the end. So that's 100, 100, 100, and 36. Now, I know what all of you pixel maximizers and pixel packers and 12 volters are thinking right now. All of you who take one Falcon and say, I'm using every single pixel in 96 universes. I'm using it all. I'm using my controller. Right now, I'm going to tell you 100%, I'm only using 36 pixels on one port. And I don't care. More controllers is more better. I would rather buy another controller and not think about it. For me, again, it's all about simplicity. I want it to be simple. So what we'll do is we'll manually show you the steps here, and then we'll go ahead and demo them in xLights step by step. So we're going to do some screenshots, and you'll see the screens as we build them, because I'm not going to build the model for you and explain it all. I'm just going to walk you through the steps. So number one, we're going to start with 4 output, the 4 output native way that you might wire this. And the native way that we would wire this is 4 strings, 84 pixels per strand, and then 2 strands per string. So basically, and we can show you this later, but your first pixel would be here at the bottom left. It would go up 42, over and down 42. That would be your repeating pattern. You'd have 4 strings at 84 pixels. Now, in my head, I do not want to waste 16 pixels. So 100 minus 84 is 16 pixels. I don't want to waste those pixels. In my head, I want to use 100 pixels on my first output. So now you can see why it's really hard to name this exact video. I give it a good name because there's no simple way to spout this out. We're not going to waste 16 pixels, no sir. And we're going to do something that is going to adjust the matrix model to allow us to do this flexibly. We're going to prep the model so data will go out correctly. We're going to use 1 string instead of 4 strings in the model, and we'll tell it that it has 336 pixels. We're going to then convert the model into a custom model. Then we're going to assign our pixel counts of 100, 100, 136, and we're not going to waste 4 times 16 pixels per strand. So to do this, this is rather simple. We're just going to create another matrix. I have them side by side. And what I did here was I used strings. I put 1 string, 336 pixels. That's both my modular matrix panels together. And it has 8 strands. So it's going to go up, over, down, over, up, over, down, over. It's 1 string. That's all xLights knows. It knows exactly where it's at. Now, this is the beauty of this. It's actually sets it up in xLights in the node layout. Whenever you do this correctly, we'll see that down the road here when we get to the conversion of the model. So the next step is going to be to export the native model. And to do this, all we have to do is we hover over top of the model after it's selected. We right click and we select export as xLights custom model. Really, really simple. This is a 1-second move. And then after that, you can come over here where you'll have this output file. You'll give it a name if you want to name it. It auto defaults to the name of the prop. And in this case, it said matrix 2. So that's exactly the next step. So after we've created this custom model, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to now import that custom model into xLights. And the way that we do this is we go to the top of the xLights setup screen. We click the import button. We click and we drag like we're creating a model in xLights. And then a dialog box opens up and it says choose model file. And in this instance, I have matrix-2 selected. I click open. And the next thing you know, I have another matrix panel that pops into xLights for me. This gives me the opportunity to manipulate the matrix panel in, even though it's 1 string, it's still a matrix panel. It looks identical to a matrix. It is a matrix. There's no difference in it. Effects render normally over top of it, just as if it was a matrix. So the first thing that we're going to do, note that strings default automatically to 1 because we told that. Well, that's just strings just default to 1. So, and what we're talking about here is once you select that custom model, because this isn't a matrix model, this is a physical custom model, you have strings and it's auto default to 1. Whenever we change this number from 1 to 4, because we're making 4 outputs, we get a new box called the individual start nodes box. And that appears for us. The next thing we'll do after that is we'll check the box. Pretty simple. After we check the box, this opens up and tells us, hey, what pixel number do you want me to start at for string 1, string 2, string 3, and string 4? So with that in mind, we've been able to now easily solve our issue of how do I customize my outputs and have it able to upload to xLights. So in this case, obviously, whenever you're doing this, the other thing that it's very important to mention is that you're going to use a pixel number. You're not using channel numbers, you're using pixel number. When we do custom model work in xLights, we're always thinking about the number of pixels or the pixel number. That's what builds the model for us. And we're highly identifying that model. And on the next slide, what you'll see is pixel number 1, pixel number 101, pixel 201, pixel 301. And you'll see here how xLight sees this model. And what you see here is this is the node layout whenever you right click over top of it. Unfortunately, at this time, when you right click over a multiple output model, custom model in xLights, it does not highlight the numbers to different colors. So I had to go and edit this graphic so that it showed the pretty colors. But I wanted to point out that, again, just like our custom model or just like our regular matrix panel, I went up 42, I went down 42. There's our first 84 pixel nodes plus 85 through 100. This is string number 1. String number 2 ends up here, goes up, over, down, over, and up. And as you can see here, that's the end, 200. So remember our pixel counts. Pixel count 101, pixel count 201. Well, whenever we follow this, we go to 200s, 200, down, up and down. Oops, sorry. Up and down, over and up and over and down. Now we're at our 300. Now we're on our last string. This is our 4th output. And you can see that xLights has logically figured out that the way that you're going to output this to your controllers, it can upload it as well. And the next screen shows you a picture of the physical visualizer that if you have it set up to output to those ports specifically, you can see that you have 100 pixels on the first, second, third outputs, and then finally you have 36 pixels on the last output. And this uploads instantly to xLight, from xLights to pretty much any controller that is available to be uploaded or uploadable to. With that, I'm going to go in and we're going to jump into xLights as soon as I can find the Alt tab. There we go. So we'll walk through the steps real quick. I'm going to go up here and grab a matrix panel, and I'm going to say the initial one, the original one, was 1 string with a total node count of 336 pixels. Then we added how many strands? We had 8 strands. And if we open this up, you'll see, oops, oh, I have horizontal. Let's change that to vertical. Okay, so now we have our matrix panel like you saw in the demo. The next step would be, because we have 1 output, next step is going to be right click, export as xLight's custom model. You can see I've already done this for the demo. We'll type matrix X, we'll just say. Okay, so now we've exported this as a custom model. Our next step is going to be import. And we'll click and drag. Here's our matrix X model that we just created. And now you can see the difference between these two models is this is a native xLights model. This is a custom model. We can physically come in here and we can open up the dialog box and we can physically see the locations of every individual pixel wherever they may be. So xLights created this for us. Rather simple, not hard. This is as basic as we get. So the next step here, if we're going to use 4 outputs to solve our solution or to answer a question of specific pixel counts for outputs, we're going to, first we have to change our string count to the number of outputs that we're going to use. In this case, we're going to use 4. And then I'm going to put a checkbox here beside the individual nodes. Or the individual start nodes. And then from here, it automatically breaks it down evenly. It tells you, hey, I know 1 through 84 is equal to, is 1/4 of the model. xLights will break it down for you. But we're actually just using a pixel number. Remember, you can come in here, you can look at the node layout. Like I said, pretty colors are not included on this, but you can say, hey, node number 1, string 2, see how it says 100 there. We can go in there and we can, I mean, it literally tells you exactly where your pixel counts are. So we can say this is node number 101, because we want 1 through 100 on string 1 or output 1. We want 101 through 200, and then we want 201, and then obviously we want 301. Whoops, 301 on the last output. So now we actually go back to that node layout now that we've added that in, and you can see string 1, node 1, string 1, 84, 85, all the way up to string 1, 100. Now we're on string number 2, just right there. And then it carries through just as that graphic did that I put the pretty colors on the other screen. And now if we come down here and we do something really simple, such as assign this to a port on a controller, and let's just put it on a port. Let's go back to our controller tab. Now I've set up a Falcon, an F16 V3 with 2 expansion boards. Nothing fancy here. And if we look at the matrix panel, it's already assigned to it. It says pixel port 1, pixel port 2, 3, and 4. The last port shows our 36 or oddball count string. Yes, I know some of you are sitting there saying you seriously are running 36 pixels on an output. Yes, I am. In fact, I'm doing it multiple times. I hope you get excited over that and get mad. Just kidding. So just kidding. So that is the hardest thing to kind of explain, is going through this specific step or process and kind of articulating it ahead of time. So if you have any questions, I know this is kind of out of character. Usually we wait till the end of the xEssentials to do any question asking. By all means, I think it's important that we answer some questions. If you have some specific questions now, then by all means, go ahead and unmute your microphone. I'm welcome to answer any of them. We're gonna smash up the walls. I heard somebody. Or if you have it in chat, I'm going to zip through chat and see if anything.
And that matrix that you set up is just one model element?
It is just one element. It's just one model.
Okay.
So I created this model. This was my start model. I don't need it anymore. I can delete it. It's done. And then now that I have this one and I've multiplied this on my display, I can paste it. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 of these. So that's literally how I have them set up on my layout. Similar, very similar, very similar.
And this is especially good, Clyde, right? When you have a matrix, some people have a matrix that don't have an even number of pixels that can be divisible and multi-string, so this would help.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll give an example. I have another example that I could pull off relatively quickly, and that is the main pixel panel that is on the front end of my house. I started with that one. That was I didn't start with that one. That was the one I learned the lesson off of and figured out how to do this specific instance. And that matrix is a vertical matrix. I like vertical much better than I like horizontal. And it has, I had to set it up as one string, and it had, oh boy, I've got to find a calculator here. So, 72 times 35. That's what it is. So I would have a total of 2,520 pixels in my matrix, and this is going to be and it has 72 folds in it, and this would be the size of it on my house. This is the matrix that I'm physically using, and so the same thing, the same instance applies. So this is just a different take on it. I wanted 100 pixels, 5-volt pixels, 100 pixels per output maximum, and what I did was I hit export xLights model. And this was my window model. And all I did was export it as a custom model, bring it back in as my window model. Oops. Ooh, look at that. Not sure why I did that, but that's xLights. Reset. Okay, my window's not that big. But if we go into here and we change this to, I believe It is 26 strings of 100. Oh, did that bring it? Oh, it didn't bring it in right. I didn't do it right. I didn't do it right. That's why. Export as custom xLights model. I don't know why it didn't work. Try that again. Replace it. Import, click, drag, Windows. Maybe it works this time. Yes, it works. So this is a custom model now. I have one string. I want to make this 26 strings, I believe. Is that what it is? Yeah, no, 20, 25 strings. And if I make it 25 strings, I give it individual start numbers. So here's 101, 202, 303, 404. It started doing it. So there's 101, 101, 201. And then I literally have to go 301, 401, and so forth the whole way down the line. If we go in here and look at the node layout, you can see that those 35 pixels up worked out just fine. 35 up, down, then back up. It ends right here at 100, and now we're in string 2, and then you can see over here string 3 and string 4, etc., etc. And you can set up, if you want to do 200 pixels and you want it to be one continuous matrix, but you want, so the use case for me, and we're in Zoom, so let me annotate because I love drawing on the screen. In my instance, my matrix panel is a vertical panel, and there's 6 panels that are vertical like this. So mine breaks down into very easy to manage, easy to manage system. And this was the easiest way that I could figure out how to wire it and keep it all 100 pixels per output. So that's just another use case for you guys. Let me go through chat real quick. A custom model renders a little slower than a built-in matrix. So if you're using the same length, this is from John D. Strings don't. If you're using the same length strings, don't do this. But if you're using different length strings, this is the way to go. I will respectfully agree and disagree with you, John. If I'm going to build my models this way, then it really doesn't matter how well xLights renders it. As long as it renders it, it will do it fine. I've been doing this now for 4 years with this, 3 years with the column matrix, 2 years with this panel. If you Control C and Control V that model, it will come out like you set up the first one. That is correct. Let me clear my drawings. And let me get rid of the drawings. If I copy this model, Control C, Control V, as I showed before, all of these settings will be, well, as long as I save it first, which I didn't save it first. Well, maybe oh yeah, it did. It saved it. So there's the same settings will be copied from one to another. Let's see. Yeah, and then all I have to do is put the port number on there, and it will carry it over to the Falcon. So there's that. Yes, you're right, John. I did export that as a custom model. I did walk back and explain that. Why do I prefer vertical matrices over horizontal? Because in my experience, it's easier for me to start at the bottom and have my chords down here rather than have my chords all hanging out over here and having to trail them. This would become a big chord mess, or this would be a big chord mess. And to kind of simplify it as well, my matrix panels are literally 12 wide. So I use from Boscoyo, I use the mesh panels that are 2 foot wide by 8 foot long. I cut them down to 6 foot long. And so whenever I take them down and I store them, they're literally only this wide. They roll up. It's nice and easy for me to put them up on my own because I don't have somebody that can helps me put the display up or take it down. So that's why I prefer the vertical model. Always seems to work the best for pretty much everything that I do. It's just like a mega tree. I think of it as a mega tree. So Michael Wall asked a good question: the difference between a matrix, vertical and horizontal matrix. Oops, I do not know what happened there. Oops. Okay, so vertical, the only difference between vertical and horizontal is the way that the wires go. So if we change this to horizontal, it changes the aspect ratio and makes it more like this, which is the way it would, but it goes now horizontal is your wiring pattern versus vertical, which is the way I have them wired. So that's the difference. I've done a specific video on this. If you go to the PPD YouTube page on vertical and horizontal matrices, and it's in the layout creation series that I did. You're welcome to go ahead and check that out. Yes, that's correct, Phil. Phil asked a question. So this matrix would need 26 cables going to it. Yes, it would. Like I said, more controllers, more better. Just to be clear, I understand the point here. However, even with 5-volt pixels, you could run the first example off of one port. You would just have to inject power, correct? Yes, I don't want to power inject those, so therefore I choose not to power inject, and I prefer more controllers, more better. And that's the way I like it. Okay, so let's go ahead and Alt-Tab back over to the presentation. We'll press on. The next part of the demo is going to be on, and I don't have any more fancy slides. This is going to be relatively quick after this, but one of the things that I despise is I hate cutting off my pixels. I just don't want to do it, and there's a lot of people out there that don't want to do it. An example of this might be if you use the Boscoyo candy canes or the snowflakes that are only 48 pixel counts. And we're going to use this example here as well. If we use the candy canes with 48 pixels, nobody, unless you order a custom string at 48 pixels, you're going to have 2 left over at the end. And if you don't want to cut it, there's a very simple way to deal with this. Again, with the Falcon and the Culp controllers, it handles it easily without a problem. We use what's called a virtual string that will easily upload. And you can see here an example of a Boscoyo Chroma Cane 48, and then, the first one and the second one. And when you have a null pixel, using a null pixel in the second model, it actually indents or lowers the line. It shows that on port 5, these are connected. But this one isn't back to back with this one. This would imply, if they were side by side here, it would imply that there were 48 pixels and then no null pixel. By default, when you add a null pixel in, it creates what's called a virtual string. So xLights now moves it to a different line, and it says, okay, these models are together, they're in the same output, but they have different channels that are non-consistent or possibly are non-consistent. So don't take this as a bad thing. This is just how xLights sees it, and this is how the Falcons or the Culp controllers see it. You can use this in the controller visualizer to verify whenever you make the settings. And we'll go ahead and we'll download the Chroma Canes. We'll go ahead, click the import. I'm sorry, not click the import, click the download. Click and drag, and candy canes are here. I'm going to grab the 48 pixel count, and nothing fancy, just a candy cane. Now, if we have 2 of these, and again, I like to use 5-volt pixels. Oh wait, I just didn't mean to do that. We do another download. Let's go candy canes again. Grab it, insert model, and what xLights will do is xLights natively chains models, and this is rather important, but xLights will chain these 2 models together if you put them down one after another. So notice how this says Chroma Cane 48. If I change this to Chroma Cane 1, it'll make a little bit more sense. So Chroma Cane 1, and then you can see here, whenever we change that, it says it's model chained to Chroma Cane 1. So Chroma Cane 2, Chroma Cane 1, bam. All we're going to do is, we know that we're using a 50 count pixel string on this specific candy cane. We know we're using 50 count pixels on this one too. If we have another one and another one and another one over here, we can continue this process if you want to. So it's as long as you're using the Culp or the Falcon controllers that can handle the virtual strings, this is a non-issue. This is very simple. So all we're going to do is come down here to where it says that we have a null pixel set null pixel. We'll put a checkbox in there. Then we'll scroll down again and see where it says we can enter a number of null pixels. So what xLights will do now is it'll say, hey, start at this channel, add 48 pixels to the front of this, but also add 2 null pixels to the front of this so that it knows that there's 50 pixels before pixel number 1 starts on this cane. Basically, that's exactly what's happening. So if we come over here and we change this port number to port number 1, and we put them on the same port, port number 1, and we go over to our controller tab and we select our controller, we hit visualize, you can see just as before, you have, there is no visual representation. It does say the number of correct pixels, 96 pixels total, but it doesn't say that there's a null pixel on here. You just kind of need to know that. However, if you see, I've hovered over it, the tooltip here at the bottom, it says null pixels 2. So down there at that bottom, that little screen there, it says null pixels, 2 null pixels. And those null pixels come from the last 2 pixels that were on here, obviously, before. So this also works, obviously, with the snowflakes. If you've had the 24-inch snowflakes, the 2-prong fancies, you know, they're 48 pixels in there. If you click on here, you see how 48 pixels. It's the same case here. If you copy and paste this model, you can have the same result here. So you can have these original legacy props, and you can stack them up one on top of another. If you have 4 of them in a row and you're running 12-volt pixels, you can put 4 of them on an output, and all you have to do is the last 3 have 2 null pixels set here in the dialog beforehand. So let me go look at chat real quick and see if you have any questions on this. Stipic Light Show says there is more than one way to skin a cat. Absolutely, absolutely. xLights is like filled with 30 different ways to do the same thing. Let's see. Why wouldn't prop makers? This is my favorite question of if Mark Dixon. Why wouldn't prop makers not just make props with even numbers like 50 or 100 pixel candy canes? So what many people who are new to the hobby or have been in the hobby for a while, one of the things that's one question is, why are we only running 50 or 40 or 30 or 22 pixels on a prop? That's ridiculous. But back in the day when we started with, I mean, before xLights 4, which is what we're using now, version 4 xLights, which is has been out since 2015, the beginning of 2015. Before xLights 4 was around, we didn't have the additions in xLights that we have. We didn't, but pixels literally cost $1 a piece. So if you bought 48 pixels for this prop, you spent $50 on a string of pixels. Pixels were ridiculously expensive back in the day. A Megatree only had 16 by 50. If we build a Megatree, the default for the Megatree is 16 by 50, and that's because a 16 by 50 800 pixel Megatree cost you well over $1,000 just in pixels. It was ridiculously expensive. So back then we looked for ways to illuminate things the best that we could with as little as possible. And over the past 7 to 8 years, we've seen a huge drop in price. And that's why we're about to talk about high definition props, HD props with 6, 7, 8, 1,000 pixels. And so keep in mind that while some of these props, there's nothing wrong with having these older props, and many of you may, question exactly why. That, I mean, that is a phenomenal, that's a good question. Why would we do that? That's why we did it. We did it because it just costs so darn much just to make one prop. So you spend $200 and you had 4 candy canes. you know. So that's just how it was back in the day. Let's see. Is the 250s or 100 the port 1 throws me off? Michael. Michael, can you explain that a little better? I do not understand what you mean. Is the 250s or the 100? Let's see. And KT Walker says, does that also null out the last 2 pixels? No, it does not. It nulls the pixels in the very front ahead of it. So when you null a pixel out, you're nulling what's in front of it, never what's behind it. Did you put null pixels on the beginning or the end? Jamie asks pretty much the same question, same answer. Pixels are always nulled ahead. Whatever's in front of it is what the null is. Ken added start at the middle and move them closer to the prop, depending on how it works out. Yes. Scott Baker helped answer the question. Brandon has marked some of the decisions would not work because the design example 99 pixel cane, 3 rows divides evenly. Yes, that's another reason it's easier to design a pixel around even numbers. We learned that about the mesmerizer. There were 3 iterations of the mesmerizer, and we've had to settle on a number, and it was 1118, 17, can't remember right now. I thought you could only have a null on each string. So Joe, that's a good question. Can you have nulls on multiple strings? Okay, the controller is what says it can have a null pixel. If the controller has null pixel ability, yes, it can. Through virtual strings have more null pixels. But if your controller does not, I repeat, does not have virtual strings, you can only use null pixels on the first incoming. If you're extending data from the controller, say you're going 50 feet away from the controller and you have a null pixel to get to the first pixel on the prop, which now we would use an F amp so that you wouldn't have to use a null pixel. Yes, James Hohensi is here in the house. I'm glad to see him here. He can answer those legacy questions. We had that wonderful discussion last night. That was a great discussion. Okay. If the null pixels are in front, where are the 2 extra pixels located on the prop? Do you leave the first 2 pixels loose and then start pushing through the wiring pattern? No. The pixels are hanging off the end of the prop before it. So let's that's a good point. Let me alternate tab back into here. So let me get my drawing tools out here to and this is a good point. So this is 48 pixels, right? My horrible handwriting because I can't draw with a mouse. Okay, so you have 48 pixels here, and then you have pixel number 49, pixel number 50. That's on this string, okay? And whenever you connect from this string to this string here, this is 50 here, but we start on pixel number 1 here. This starts on pixel number 1. This has extra pixel 49 and extra pixel 50. The null comes before this, so you have to give this model the null pixel. And again, in xLights, if you're using the Falcon or the Cult boards, they support virtual strings, and you can do this. If you do not, then virtual strings won't work for your upload, and you may have to come up with some other solution for yourself, or you cut them off. Gone.
And how do you know you're doing a virtual string? Where is that shown?
So again, that's on the controller visualizer right here. That's how you know you're on a virtual string right there.
Got it.
So if they were chained together, so I'll give you another example. If they were chained together, like we have this flake and this flake, these are chained together, and we put this on port number 3, and we put this on port number 3. xLights would logically say, hey, this one is number 1, this one is number 2. xLights is going to logically say on port number 3, well, it should say that. Maybe I'm wrong. Did I put a virtual? Maybe I screwed up something. That should be one long line. So there is no null. There should be no nulls. So I don't usually what xlights would be. Now I have egg on my face right now, but usually this would be beside this line right here. I'm not exactly sure. As a virtual string, this is what signifies the virtual string.
The models aren't following each other, Clyde.
Aren't they? Is that what it is?
It has a warning if you look at that again.
Oh, does it? Warning, gap in models on pixel port 3. Oh, how did that happen? That's kind of odd. Oh, well, that's why. Because I put that tree model in there. I was just flying by, wasn't I? Well, that would signify that there's a perfect example of a virtual string with a meaning. Okay, well, I last year I had a mega tree, and this year I added this prop here, and it virtual stringed around the mega tree and put these two on the same port. That's the use of a virtual string, where you don't have to rewire or rechannel all of your stuff. So here you'd have your other flake, and we could put that manually on port number 3. So if we go back here, visualize, and now you can see. Now you can see how this is a standard chain where they're chained to the same port. They're in line with each other, and they're using exactly 48 pixels. This here is an instance where you would see that there's a virtual string because it sits down below this one. So let's go ahead and zip right along to the HD props, and specifically the mesmerizer. Now, the content specifically really isn't hard to understand. You can download this model. The model's in xlights. That's all we're going to do. But the basic idea is it's a circle model with 16 layers, and you can make your own version of it. But it's better to use the download because there's a ton of submodels that were put into it that I built into it whenever James come up with the final outline, because we tried to shove as many pixels on this thing as we could, but when we went to submodel it just didn't look even and clear and crisp. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and flash back to xlights, and we're going to go ahead. I'll just go ahead and get rid of these. And we'll go ahead and download the mesmerizer, which is a spinner, and Boscoia mesmerizer, insert model. This is a circle model. You can see that it's a circle model specifically. Now, the problem with, so let's, for example, many people ask the question, how am I going to split this up whenever I have, well, how do you break up 1117 pixel count spinner? How do you break that up into 4 equal outputs? And the answer is you don't do it equally. And if you do break it down, you do it exactly the same way that we've already done this. Now, the downside to what I'm about to do is we have this really pretty model here. And when we do export this as a custom xlights model, now I've already done it. I'll make another one here. We'll call it Mesmerizer X. And we'll do the import just as we did before with the matrix. We'll go ahead and click open. What we lose here is the pretty. We lose the pretty. But the beauty of this is that whenever we exported and we imported, we didn't lose one single submodel at all. All of the submodels are working and are in good order, and everything will translate back into it to where it was before. So everything that was in this model is still in this model, and they're identical in every way. One just isn't as pretty as the other. But whenever you're just trying to do, trying to get that upload to work the way that you want it, the standard xlights model will not let you, it will let you put 4 different strings, but the second that you put 300 pixels, so 3 times 4 is 1200 pixels, it doesn't upload correctly, at least not that I'm aware of. It may work. I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but it doesn't show correctly. And so that's what I want to show you with the specific model that we're using here. If we go back in here again, change our string count from 1 to 4 strings, and then we click our checkbox on the individual start nodes, We have 1. We can change this to 301. Pixel number 601. Remember, we're not using channel numbers. We're using pixel count numbers in the custom model dialog, and then 901. Now, if we go into node layout, now this is a big model. You can see that it will do the same thing here. String 2, string 2, string 1, string 3, because it works inward circularly, and string 4 and string 3, where you at? String 3. So you can see that it translates very well into the xLights model. If we go in and we assign this to, let's say pixel port number 8 on the controller, let's go to visualize it. And you can see here we have the Boscoyo Mesmerizer, 300 pixels, 300 pixels, 300 pixels, 217. And this is, now I know I should have put this on 9, but you know, it is what it is. This is exactly how I run it on my house. I use a custom model. I put it on port number, whatever. I use a receiver to run it. And if you're running this on a receiver, again, a lot of people like to pack pixels into their controllers and so forth. I don't, and this prop, for example, is a 12-volt prop. I don't like to power inject, so I'm not going to put anything more on there than that. And I run it like 50%, or 30% or whatever. So this works for me. I'm hoping that the information that I gave to you guys tonight is something that's helpful, that whenever you look at really customizing your own models and layouts and so forth, if there's something that you want to do specifically, there's a way to do it. And if you want to do it, you're probably going to be able to do it. Just take your time and try to think outside of the box. There are a lot of solutions that xLights does have.
Thank you, Clyde.
Well, I appreciate the chance to be with you guys tonight. It's a lot of fun putting some of this stuff together and to articulate it. Sometimes a little more challenging, but there is a lot that xLights does, and there's a lot of things that you can uncover. There's things that I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know about xLights because I actually dove more into Rob's world. Rob usually does more of the layout stuff, but this I always find is fascinating. People have trouble or challenges with it. It's, you know, it can get very confusing. So again, always try to push yourself, push xLights to the best limit that you can, because whenever you do, the program does nothing but get better. So thank you for having me, guys. Have a wonderful night.
The xLights project exists because of people like you. Help continue the project by making a donation today at xlights.org/donate.